Didn't emphasize the fact that you are happily married with, was it 4 children, 5?
I have four children.
Four
yeah.
children.
And actually, that's a little bit wrong too, because I'm divorced.
Oh.
You know.
Ricky Nelson, born Eric Hilliard Nelson on May 8, 1940, was a talented American singer, songwriter, and actor. He rose to fame in the 1950s as the son of Ozzie and Harriet Nelson, stars of the popular television show The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet. Ricky's charming image and musical ability made him a teenage heartthrob, with hits like Poor Little Fool, Hello Mary Lou, and Travelin' Man helping him become a household name. Nelson's career spanned several decades, transitioning from a teen idol to a respected rock and roll figure. In the 1960s, he embraced a more mature sound, incorporating folk rock and country elements into his music. Despite his success, Nelson faced personal struggles, including turbulent relationships, battles with fame, and his ongoing attempts to reinvent himself artistically.
Rock and roll singer Rick Nelson was killed last night in a private plane crash in Texas.
Ricky Nelson's tragic end came on December 31, 1985, when he was aboard a private plane traveling from Birmingham, Alabama, to Dallas, Texas. The plane caught fire mid-flight due to a mechanical failure, which caused it to crash in a field near DeKalb, Texas. Nelson, who was 45 years old, was among the 7 people who died in the crash, including his fiancée, his band members, and a friend. The crash shocked his fans and the music world. Many of his supporters found it especially tragic given that Nelson had been making a musical comeback at the time of his death, with a resurgence in popularity due to his hits being rediscovered and embraced by younger generations. His passing marked the end of an era for a musician who had made significant contributions to rock and roll. Ricky Nelson's death was later the subject of much speculation, and some reports indicated that the fire on the plane was possibly caused by a spark from a faulty heating system, which could have contributed to a cabin fire. Nonetheless, Nelson's legacy in both television and music lives on, and he is remembered for his timeless songs and the unique place he carved out in the cultural history of the 20th century. Ricky Nelson's tragic death in the plane crash has led to various rumors and speculations over the years. Some of these have centered around the circumstances of the crash, while others concern his life and career leading up to his death. One of the most persistent rumors surrounding Ricky Nelson's death is the possibility of foul play. Some conspiracy theorists have speculated that the fire on the plane was not accidental and that it may have been caused intentionally. However, the official investigation concluded that the fire was caused by a mechanical failure in the aircraft's electrical system, specifically a faulty heating unit, which caused the cabin to catch fire. There were no conclusive signs of sabotage, but the idea that something more sinister might have been involved has lingered in the public imagination. Another rumor that has circulated since Nelson's death is that he may have been under the influence of drugs or alcohol at the time of the crash. Some accounts suggest that Nelson had struggled with substance abuse, particularly in the 1970s and 1980s. However, toxicology reports from the crash site revealed no significant traces of drugs or alcohol in his system, leading most experts to dismiss this theory. Some have referred to Ricky Nelson's life as being cursed, given the string of personal and professional hardships he faced, despite his early success. His rocky marriage, struggles with addiction, and the early deaths of his parents added to the sense that Nelson's life was fraught with tragedy. The final, dramatic crash of his plane added a tragic chapter to the narrative, leading to a lingering sense that Nelson's life was destined for misfortune. After his death, rumors surfaced about the nature of Ricky's relationship with his fans and the music industry. His 1972 hit Garden Party famously included the line, "You can't please everyone, so you've got to please yourself," which some saw as a reflection of his frustration with his image as a teen idol. Following his death, Many speculated that this song, and its message, symbolized his desire to break free from the past and create a more authentic identity as an artist. There were also claims that Ricky had become increasingly disillusioned with the expectations placed on him and his efforts to forge a new path musically in the 1980s. Despite his early fame, Ricky's life was fraught with personal turmoil, particularly during his teenage and adult years. As a young man, he struggled with the pressure of living up to the image of a clean-cut, wholesome TV star while navigating the chaotic world of rock and roll. One of the most significant personal tragedies in Ricky's life was his tumultuous marriage to actress Kristen Harmon, daughter of football legend Tom Harmon and sister of actor Mark Harmon. The marriage, which began in 1963, was fraught with difficulties, including infidelity, substance abuse, and intense public scrutiny. The couple divorced in 1982, and Ricky was deeply affected by the breakdown of his family, particularly as he was very attached to his 4 children. As he navigated his career, Nelson struggled with personal demons, including substance abuse and a sense of being trapped in his teen idol persona. In the 1970s and early 1980s, his music career waned, and he attempted to reinvent himself. He found new success with the country rock genre and gained a resurgence of popularity after his 1972 album Garden Party, which reflected his frustration with his past image and the music industry's expectations of him. Ricky's parents, Ozzie and Harriet, were immensely influential in his early life and career. They were a stabilizing force for him during his childhood. The deaths of both his parents in the 1970s left Ricky with a profound sense of loss. His mother's death in 1975 and his father's passing in 1975 were deeply affecting for Ricky, who had always been close to them. Ricky was born into a show business family. His father, Ozzie Nelson, was a popular bandleader and actor, while his mother, Harriet Hilliard, was a singer and actress. Both were stars of the highly successful radio and TV series The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet, which began in 1944 and ran for more than 2 decades. The show portrayed the Nelson family as a wholesome, idealized version of the American family, with Ricky and his younger brother, David, playing versions of themselves. From the start, Ricky was surrounded by the entertainment industry, and his parents were instrumental in shaping his early exposure to show business. The Nelsons' home life was idyllic and privileged, offering Ricky a strong foundation for his future career. Ricky showed a deep interest in music from a young age. Though he appeared on the family's TV show and was part of their comedy routines, music was his true passion. He first learned to play the guitar, and his early influences included country, folk, and early rock and roll artists. However, it wasn't until his teen years that he began to seriously pursue music on his own. His big break came when he was just 16 years old. In 1957, Ricky was asked to perform a song on The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet as part of an episode that featured his character's involvement in the burgeoning rock and roll scene. The song he performed, I'm Walkin', a cover of Fats Domino's hit, was recorded as a demo and, without his parents' initial approval, sent to the label Verve Records. The label released it as a single, and it quickly gained popularity, reaching the top 10 on the Billboard charts. In 1957, Ricky Nelson's career officially began to take off when he signed with Imperial Records. His first major hit, Poor Little Fool, was released in 1957 and became a #1 single on the Billboard Hot 100, marking the start of his long string of successes. The song's rockabilly vibe appealed to a wide audience, and it cemented his place as a rising star in the rock and roll world. His next hits came in quick succession. Hello Mary Lou, 1961, was another major success, reaching the top 10, while Travelin' Man, 1961, written by Jerry Fuller, became one of his most beloved songs and peaked at #1 on the Billboard charts. Travelin' Man showcased Ricky's ability to craft smooth, melodic pop rock tunes that transcended the boundaries of traditional rock and roll, making him a versatile artist with cross-generational appeal. Ricky was a natural performer, and his image as the clean-cut, heartthrob teen idol from the adventures of Ozzie and Harriet made him even more appealing to a young audience. His role on the TV show, where he portrayed a wholesome and talented teenager, directly contributed to his musical success. He had the rare distinction of being both a star on TV and a hit recording artist, bridging the gap between the small screen and the record charts. Throughout the early 1960s, Ricky Nelson continued to release a series of successful singles and albums. Songs like I Can't Help It, 1960, A Teenager in Love, 1962, and It's Up to You, 1963, continued to chart, making him one of the era's biggest stars. However, as the 1960s progressed, the music world began to shift. The rise of artists like Elvis Presley, Chuck Berry, and the Beatles, as well as changing musical tastes, posed a challenge to the traditional pop structure that Ricky had built his career on. His carefully crafted image as the ideal American teen heartthrob began to feel out of step with the rapidly evolving cultural landscape. Despite this, Nelson's TV career continued to thrive. The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet remained a popular show, providing him with continued exposure. Ricky, however, began to wrestle with the constraints of his wholesome image. He wanted to prove that he was more than just a pretty face and sought to evolve his musical style and identity. By the mid-1960s, Ricky Nelson was determined to break free from his clean-cut, teen idol image and reinvent himself as a more serious artist. He began experimenting with different musical styles, incorporating elements of folk rock, country, and even a bit of psychedelic rock into his music. In 1967, he released the album Ricky Sings Again, which reflected his changing tastes and desire to distance himself from his previous pop persona. It was with this album that he began to find a new audience, thanks in part to songs like Garden Party, a single released in 1972 that became one of his most famous hits. Garden Party was written by Nelson and reflected his frustration with the expectations placed on him as a former teen idol. The song was a direct response to the music industry and his fans' attempts to pigeonhole him. The line "You can't please everyone, so you've got to please yourself" became an anthem for those struggling against societal expectations. It resonated with a generation that was rejecting traditional norms and embracing more experimental music and lifestyles. Ricky Nelson's legacy and influence on both music and popular culture are vast and enduring, positioning him as one of the most pioneering figures in the evolution of rock and roll and teen idol culture. Emerging from the wholesome confines of the Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet, where he portrayed the idealized son, Ricky became one of the first stars to successfully transition from television to music, laying the foundation for the modern cross-media celebrity. His early hits, such as Poor Little Fool and Travelin' Man, helped define the rockabilly and pop rock sound of the late 1950s and early 1960s, but it was his ability to adapt and evolve musically that truly set him apart. In the late 1960s and 1970s, as the rock scene shifted with the rise of folk rock, country, and psychedelia, Nelson transitioned from teen idol to a more introspective, respected artist, exemplified by his 1972 hit Garden Party. The song, which reflected his personal frustrations with the public's desire to keep him in a nostalgic box, became an anthem for artistic independence and self-expression, influencing a generation of musicians who also grappled with the pressures of public expectations. Ricky's seamless blend of pop, rock, and country prefigured the genre-bending ethos that would later dominate the music industry, particularly within the burgeoning California rock scene. Beyond his musical evolution, Nelson's role in the Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet helped shape the portrayal of family life on television, creating an image of the ideal American family that resonated for years in sitcoms that followed. This blending of wholesome image with a growing complexity as an artist set a template for future stars navigating similar transitions. Ricky's influence extended to his children, especially his sons Gunnar and Matthew, who formed the band Nelson and found success in the early 1990s, proving that his musical legacy had been passed down. His impact as a pioneering rock artist, teen idol, and television star remains significant, marking him as an iconic figure whose contributions continue to shape the entertainment industry today.